Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
First, my good evening. Welcome to Update on Manx Radio. How are you this Friday? Hope all is well. Lots to come in the next half hour as we take a look at what's been happening news-wise on the island over the past 24 hours, including the Chief Minister's concerns about Manx Care's spending. He promises there'll be a turnaround plan unveiled soon. Also on the programme, it should have been the Food and Drink Festival this weekend. We'll hear what's promised to be in its place this time next year. And seagulls. What could you be doing to help stop the decline in numbers over here? And is that something actually you'd even consider? All that, plus we'll keep an eye on the traffic as well. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you can text 166 177. First, let's join Chanel for a roundup of today's main news stories.
The Chief Minister says it's completely unsustainable for Manx Care to keep overspending its budget. The health body is forecasting a £16.8 million overspend for this financial year. Alfred Cannon says a turnaround plan needs to be put into place almost immediately. Meanwhile, Manx Care has been told that the transgender community is experiencing an overwhelmingly negative response when seeking access to gender-affirming care. Representatives of the LGBTQ+ community presented their findings of a survey which highlighted some people felt no option but to purchase hormones from the dark web. And the DEFA Minister says she's confident there'll be a more suitable replacement for the Food and Drink Festival next year. Claire Barber's been responding to claims that cancelling the event was a poor decision. In international news, an 18-year-old man's been arrested and a murder inquiry launched after 3 people were found dead in Luton. Officers were called to a 15-storey block of flats this morning. Approval for the UK's first coal mine in 30 years has been quashed by the High Court in a landmark victory for climate campaigners. The judge said a decision by the Conservative government in 2022 was legally flawed. And it's understood parcel carrier Yodel will hire more than 3,000 workers ahead of the busy Christmas season. Flexible working will be offered, with couriers able to make deliveries around their existing schedules. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Can't believe we've had the C word already on Update. Let's take a look at the weather now, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Cloudy and dry to start with, then that cloud will thicken overnight, so there will be the risk of a few outbreaks of rain or drizzle at times. Minimum temperatures will be around 11 Celsius. And cloudy and mainly dry tomorrow morning. Some brightness breaking through in the afternoon. It is going to be windy though. A strong south-southwest wind and a maximum temperature of around 16. And then Sunday, it's going to be a pretty damp start to the day. Outbreaks of rain or drizzle. It will improve though as the day goes on. Some bright or sunny intervals developing and top temperatures again around 16.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
TE Carbon provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown, or at Broadway, Douglas, or call 844 440. TE Carbon, here when you need us.
Ambitions Recruitment Consultants, covering all business sectors in the Isle of Man. Register online or email your CV to info@ambitions.co.im or ring 614 841. Ambitions, for all your recruitment needs, however big or small.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. It's coming up to 4.5 minutes past 5. Now, as we just heard in the headlines, the Chief Minister says a turnaround plan for Manx Care is needed following a £16.8 million overspend. If you were listening to yesterday's programme, we heard that that figure is actually lower than was predicted earlier in the summer, but Alfred Cannon has described it as very, very serious. He's told us something needs to change almost immediately.
The position with regards to the latest healthcare overspend is very, very concerning. It will have to be tackled. There will have to be a turnaround, and that will have to be addressed immediately. And I will make clear to everybody what that turnaround will look like once we've got to an agreement about what its objectives are and when it will take place. But it will have to happen almost immediately. We can only spend what we can afford to spend, and we need to quickly get to grips with our understanding that the money that is being allocated is being used as efficiently and effectively as possible, and also that the organisation, Health Care, Manx Care, can operate to a financial discipline, meaning that they will stay within their budget. I'll be totally honest with you and with everybody else that it is completely unsustainable for them to continue to overspend their budgets, especially given the amount of money that they received in the last year's budget, and particularly given the fact that that also incorporated a tax rise, which means that everybody has had to contribute more in taxation over the last 12 months, and that Manx Care received a further £20 million in direct taxation, as well as £23 million or so in terms of added extra allowance from the Treasury in from our income receipts. If it's not addressed, it will cause us to have a very serious and negative impact on our reserves in the very short term, and that by itself will be a matter of great concern.
Some very strong words there from the Chief Minister, Alfred Cannon. We have invited Manx Care to respond, and you can hear more about this on Perspective with Phil Gaughan this Sunday from midday. It's coming up to 5:07. The Environment, Food and Agriculture Minister says she's confident there'll be a more suitable alternative to the Food and Drink Festival next year. Now, the government-run event, which was cancelled in June, should have actually been taking place this weekend. Claire Barber says they're working hard to find something that will appeal to everyone.
So we've had quite mixed feedback, interestingly, and some of that's because there's a number of people who weren't exhibiting at the Food and Drink Festival because it didn't work for them, and they're very interested in engaging with us about what could be the alternative that could make sure we pick up some of those points. So unquestionably, we have had feedback from some producers that absolutely matches that, but I would say it has been mixed. And it was mixed prior to the cancellation as well, because we had feedback that there was a discomfort amongst the producers that the ticket prices, for example, were at the level that they were at. But from our perspective, in order to manage the budget, that was the only way we could put the event on. So there's a number of different elements, I think, that play out.
So are you confident then that this time next year, if we sat down and had a conversation, having just had the summer months, that you feel like the local producers and manufacturers that we have here will feel better supported by DEFRA in getting their products out there?
That's absolutely where I want to be. And I think, it's also drawn to light, I suppose, for want of a better word, that, we need to make sure our lists of contact details are updated and verified. There's people who it turns out just haven't been on the communication list, so we hadn't been communicating with them regularly. And making sure that, when we're contacting people, we're making sure we're not just always hearing back from the same people. I think that's important in any organisation, but it's definitely become, I think, apparent to me that some people don't communicate into DEFRA for many reasons, actually. And that's not a negative about them, but it's just we're not hearing some of those voices loudly. And I think it's really important we make sure that the platforms we have allow everyone to have input into what we're putting into place, because I think actually it's not one size fits all. We've got lots of different sizes of business, lots of different aspirations. Some people happy to produce 365 days a year, and some people who actually recognise that for them having a significant period off at a given time is exactly why they've taken the autonomy of running their own business. So I think there's a whole host of different situations people are in terms of the scale of the business, the size of the business, whether they employ people. And what we need to do is we need to find something that works as best as it can for everyone, or we need to have a number of smaller events that deliver for different sorts of producers.
That's the Environment Minister, Claire Barber, and you can hear much more of that interview in the Manx Radio newscast, which you can find on our website. Coming up to 5:10. So at the Braddon Commissioners meeting this week, updates were provided on the access road to the Roundhouse and also the pedestrian crossing near it. They also discussed idle waiting on Bala Oates Road and the opening of the new cafe at the community centre. Local democracy reporter Emma Draper has this report.
Braddon Commissioners have revealed the cost of the works to create an access road at the Roundhouse to be £230,000. It's been a subject under dispute between itself and the Department of Health and Social Care. Following the conveyance agreement at last month's meeting, the board received a notice of the cost and drainage work that will need to be carried out. The clerk said there are two methods: a gravity system, or bypassing the system and joining up to a manhole cover on Ballarotes Road and into the Manx utility system. £15,000 has been put forward by the commissioners to support the cost of drainage works. Also on the agenda was a memorandum to be signed about the installation of a permanent pedestrian crossing on Braddon Road. There are currently temporary lights to comply with planning regulations, which Commissioner John Quay said was requested in an illogical place. An issue raised by the clerk was that the government and local authorities can't enter into a memorandum agreement, and a lot of the document work was blank. However, Chair Andrew Jessup said it's currently costing the local authority £750 a week to have them, and the agreement should be signed. Leaky windows in the Mullindowie housing estate have been fixed. Previously, there had been issues during periods of heavy rain. However, it was resolved during summer, and the commissioners had to wait for some rain to be able to see if repairs had worked. The clerk confirmed that the contractors had finished, and 6 flats had been affected by the faulty windows. A query was raised by Commissioner Neil Mellon about idle driving. He said he'd seen an increase in vans and lorries leaving their engines running on Ballarotes Road and Strang Road. Mr Jessup said it could be designated, but if it's enforced, the commissioners may get abuse. Braddon Commissioners will next meet on Thursday the 26th of September.
Emma Draper reporting. 11 minutes past 5 now. Let's turn our attention to business, thanks to Ramsey Crookall. And another warning from the Isle of Man Bank. It said it's received a number of reports of fraudsters calling customers. Now, apparently they're impersonating the business, then requesting to gain access to accounts remotely, which sometimes involves giving them the ability to gain control of your phone, your computer, or whatever device you might be using. So clients from Isle of Man Bank are being reminded to never transfer funds or make payments at the request of an unexpected caller. They add, if you're not sure about who's calling you, hang up and contact their office on a dedicated number. So you will be able to find out much more about that over the weekend at manxradio.com. Ramsey Crookall bring us the stock market report, which tell us today that UK and European stocks rose as investors in the region digested the European Central Bank's move to further ease monetary policy. The dollar fell to its lowest level this year against the Japanese yen after media reports reignited the debate about an outsized Federal Reserve rate cut next week. Gold prices extended gains to hit a record high on expectations of those interest rate cuts, and oil prices rose, extending their rally and putting crude on course for a weekly gain on the back of output distribution in the US Gulf of Mexico. That's after Hurricane Francine forced the evacuation of production platforms there. Looking at the price commodities then, the gold standing up 0.78% at $2,578. Brent up 0.28% at $72.43. And at the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.67% at 8,270. And the latest from the Dow Jones a short time ago, it was trading up 0.69% at 41,378. And the Nasdaq up 0.61% at 17,678.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, as far as we're aware, no problems on the roads, which is good news as you're heading home this evening, and visibility over the top will be pretty good as well. Nice view. Looking at the steam packet, all looks to time down there, no disruption to any schedules. And at the airport, just a couple of minor delays on the Manchester and Dublin flights, but other than that, everything looking fine. You can contact us though if you see anything while you're out and about, 166 177, or email studio@manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside.
It is coming up to 5:15. Now, people can do more to help stop the decline in seagull numbers on the Isle of Man, according to a wildlife charity. This is after the common gull was added to the UK's red list of at-risk birds. There are already 4 species on the island's red list. Aaron Stapsford is the bird warden on the Calf of Man.
The common gull, despite its name, isn't actually common here, and in many places it's one of the sort of lesser common species. So common gull breeds only one site on the Isle of Man, up at the Manx BirdLife Point of Ayre Nature Reserve, and because they are restricted in their range on the Isle of Man, they're included in the red list here, as well as obviously being added to it in the UK. So they've actually been on the red list here, which was produced in 2021. So they've been on there for a little while for us.
And I think people forget as well that actually herring gulls are also red listed here on the Isle of Man. They are also at risk, essentially, aren't they?
They are indeed. I mean, the red list on the Isle of Man includes the herring gull, the great black-backed gull, and the lesser black-backed gull, and also black-headed gull and kittiwake, which are other species of gulls which you would see around the coastline. So, we've already got sort of 6 species here which are red listed for the Isle of Man, and that's due to the sort of population changes over time. So the data that we have for the Calf of Man sort of illustrates that very well, in that the herring gull, lesser blackback and great blackback have seen declines in the region of sort of 80% in the time that we've been monitoring birds on the Calf.
So what can we do then as a society to help them and to help them to thrive?
Well, I mean, there's obviously many reasons why these birds are declining. The food availability that we've sort of talked about, climate change and things like overfishing, entanglement from fishing gear and things like that, and developments offshore renewable energies all create problems for birds. So we need to sort of bear those things in mind, and are there ways in which we can mitigate against those and create a system or enable the birds to live alongside us and benefit as well.
That is Aaron Sapsford, who's the bird warden on the Calf of Man, talking about the decline in seagull numbers over here. Do you know, you can always guarantee, if you mention the word seagulls, especially around man and line time, it gets a whole host of comments. And it certainly is something that has provoked debate for many years. And in fact, this Sunday's Old News is all about how gulls have fared in the papers over the years. There is a great piece from the Manx Sun of 1859. You'll be able to hear that on air between 8 and 9 with Kim this Sunday. But if you missed that, you can also download it as a podcast at manxradio.com. Well worth listening back to the Old News podcast. Absolutely fascinating, put together by Howard Kane. 17 minutes past 5. Now, several racing titles are going down to the wire this weekend as the final rounds of the Andreas Racing Association Championships take place at Derby Airfield this Saturday and Sunday. Ahead of this big finale, ARA Club Secretary Neil Champion says the organisation has been really pleased with the campaign so far.
It's definitely been a good season, both in terms of numbers, in that we've had decent grids. There's always been stuff to watch, but also in the quality as well. The top guys who are racing at, we kind of downplay it because it's the island and it's the home of the TT and the Southern 100 and that sort of thing. People think, oh yeah, just at Derby, but our top guys are really right up there, and they're TT competitors and also competing at a good level across in the UK as well.
Across the championship, there's only 4 points between Ryan Kringle, Rory Parker and Jamie Kringle in the Solo Centre Championship. There's only 1 point between the top 2 in the Supersport Championship, Freddie Crane and Grant Thompson as well. So it's not just seeing the quality of riders, but the quantity of riders that are making these different classes competitive.
Absolutely right. As I said, the pace at the front is properly hot, and I mean, Grant Thompson is a fantastic advert for the club. He only started racing last year and he's planning to step up, I believe, going to go to the Manx next year, and he won his first road race this year at the Southern 100.
And not just the solos as well, but in the sidecar side of things, again, another competitive field.
I said when I got involved in the club, I always thought on the sidecar paddock as basically the canary in the coal mine. If those guys are happy, then you're doing things properly, because running a sidecar is such hard work. It's so expensive, and you have to do everything yourself, and you can't just buy a bike and go racing. It's really demanding on the crews there. We've had a couple of our kind of stalwart crews retire from racing this year. Craig Melvin's packed it in. Mike Jackson did pack it in, but then it's coming back again and so on. So actually our grids have been a little bit smaller this year, but we've made a concerted effort to kind of get people out there and also to make it attractive for people to come across as well.
That is the ARA Club Secretary Neil Champion. And for anyone who wants to go along and watch this weekend, the ACU Test Day is taking place on Saturday. The championship race is on Sunday. Bikes expected to be on track When I expect to be on track, Rob? Every day from around 9:30. I was so excited. You see, I was just thinking about you going round that track in a sidecar and thinking, this time next year, could we be watching you in proper action?
I wouldn't be holding your breath. I don't think I'm going to be getting a phone call off Ben Birchall or Pete Founds anytime soon, but still massively enjoyed it a few weeks ago.
Well, there's still time. Anyway, lots of other sporting things happening.
Indeed. Well, I think it's the best time that we take a look forward to this weekend. We'll start with football because Corinthians, Peel and Ayr United go into this weekend's latest Isle of Man football fixtures as the three Canada Life Men's Premier League sides still boasting a perfect start to the season. While targeting fourth straight victories, Corinthians travel to Laxey whilst Peel are on the road at Onken among the Saturday ties, which are all getting underway at 2:30pm. Ayr United, meanwhile, have back-to-back wins and looking for a third at home to St George's. Well, there are three teams undefeated in Division 2, with two of those in action tomorrow. Braddon, top of the table with 3 wins in 3, are away at Douglas Royal, whilst Douglas High School Old Boys, currently 2 wins from 2, welcome Maloo to Blackberry Lane. All fixtures on Saturday across the Men's Premier League Division 2 and both combination leagues, just as a reminder, our schedules kick off at 2:30pm. Well, in rugby, Douglas face their first home fixture of the new Regional 2 North West season this weekend, hoping to put an opening day defeat 7 days ago behind them. The Manx side welcome Widnes to Portshee on Saturday at 1pm, with both teams hoping to bounce back from disappointment last time out. Douglas suffered a chastening 33-0 loss at one of the last campaign's top sides, Furwood Waterloo, on the 7th of September. Meanwhile, Vagabonds, who showed promise during their opening day defeat at home to Ormskirk 6 days ago in Counties 3 ADM Lancs Cheshire, they're on the road at Orrell tomorrow. Outside of those competitive ties, the Isle of Man Under-18 Academy side face Southport this evening at 8pm at Ballafletcher, and there's also a friendly tomorrow at Portshee at 11am between Douglas Celts and Western Vikings. And finally, in hockey, another busy day of hockey action awaits on Ireland as tomorrow marks game week 2 of the 2024 mixed season. Fixtures are once again scheduled across all 4 senior leagues, along with the under-15s division, starting from just after 11am tomorrow morning and running throughout Saturday afternoon. All among this weekend's ties are an intra-club derby in the Premier League between Vikings A and Vikings B. And you can see a full schedule of this weekend's hockey fixtures at manxradio.com.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed, Rob. You're already wearing your leotard just preparing for Friday sport previews. That's a lovely sight to see. You are listening to Update on Manx Radio, 22 minutes past 5. We're going to stay with sport actually, because FC Isle of Man has a chance to extend their current unbeaten run to 5 games this Saturday as they return to the Bowl to face Cheadle Town in the NWCFL Premier Division. Now, a much-changed Ravens team produced an impressive 2-1 victory away at high-flying Ramsbottom United midweek. Manager Paul Jones was asked if the performance of some newer faces in that game might have some of the regular players sweating over their places in the starting lineup going forward.
I think, competition's healthy. I think it's good to put maybe some of the established names under a little bit of performance pressure. They know they've got people snapping at their heels who are capable of performing at that level, and I don't think it would have surprised anyone in the squad. Certainly the reaction has been galvanising, when everybody knows we've got a group that can go and perform, and even without some of our star players as such, that galvanises the whole group, and it shows how good we are capable of being. So yeah, I think, for the players that weren't there, it might be a game or two before they're back involved because of the reasons why they weren't there on Tuesday night, but certainly as and when they do get back involved, they're going to have to prove a point that they earn the shirt again.
Cheadle Town, this fixture last season, Cheadle Town late 1-0 winners. They frustrated you as a team on both occasions during the last campaign. Do you expect a similar sort of challenge on Saturday?
Yeah, probably. They've a new manager and a much changed squad as well. The away game, they nicked a winner, I think, quite late on when I thought we'd played very well that day. So it's a tough game. We've played Bury and Ramsbottom. Obviously, Bury just because of the nature of the club, and also then Ramsbottom, who were top of the league when we played them. You've got to play up, and there's that feeling of kind of maybe being a little bit underdogs that we spoke about before. And with the squad we had on Tuesday, a lack of expectation, but whereas we all knew we could do well, maybe there wasn't the outside pressure for us to do well. After 2 really strong performances and 2 good results playing against Cheadle, I think maybe the expectation is on the players to go and win that game, and that's healthy, that's good, and hopefully we can handle that. But Cheadle will come trying to frustrate us, I'm sure, and also trying to make sure they nick it and walk away with the 3 points again.
That is the Ravens manager Paul Jones talking to Rob there. FC Isle of Man versus Cheadle Town kicks off at the Bowl tomorrow night, 6pm, and Manx Radio as ever bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. And honestly, even if you're not into football, you need to listen to that game to hear the excitement in Rob's voice. Absolutely phenomenal. He and Tony do a great job there commenting on the games, and it's a lovely thing to go along. You see a lot of families going along there. It's a great atmosphere, so do pop along if you've never been before. 5:25. And just finally, people looking to learn Manx will soon have another opportunity as Culture Vannon launches more classes this weekend. So the charity offers a range of support for absolute beginners all the way through to those with a little bit more experience. The Manx Language Development Officer Ruth Kegan-Gell says knowing the language is a really good way of understanding the island even more.
We've got 2 new beginner classes actually from Culture Vannon starting this September. One is actually on a Saturday morning, which is taking place at the House of Manannan between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. every Saturday. And the teacher is James Harrison, who's a very experienced, knowledgeable teacher. He's teaching on behalf of Culture Vannon. And the classes are free to attend, so they run starting from the Saturday, the 14th of September, all the way through the academic year, finishing around the middle of July. We obviously break for the holidays and things as well. And there's also some other classes which are not Culture Vannon classes, but would be great for people in the north of the island. So those are starting up on a Tuesday evening for absolute beginners in the Mitre pub, and that's starting on the 10th of September, and that's from 7:30 till 9 o'clock, run by a chap called Paul Salmon. And then there's another one on a Wednesday night, which is more for improvers, so people who've got a wee bit of Manx already, 7:30 till 9, starting on Wednesday the 11th of September, also at the Mitre pub. So there's a few things going on. We also have a range of pre-existing classes at Culture Vannon, which you can find out about if you go to www.learnmanx.com/what's on. Don't try and put an apostrophe in, it won't work. So we're always happy to have new members along, and so they range from all sorts of different levels through to advanced. And yes, it's always lovely to see people, even if they've had a break from learning for a while, we always welcome you back into the fold. So please do come and get involved.
That is the Manx Language Development Officer Ruth Kegan-Gell there, talking about some of the classes that are available. And as she said, it's such a friendly environment. So if you're feeling a little bit unsure, but would quite like to give Manx a go, do go along. That Culture Vannon class in Peel at the House of Manannan is on from 10 until 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Well, that is all from Update this evening and indeed for this week. As ever, thank you so much for your company. Remember, you can always contact us in the newsroom by emailing newsroom@manxradio.com, and we welcome the good news stories as well. For much more about everything that you've been hearing about this evening, you can go to the Manx Radio website. Coming up next, as I say, limbering up. He really is limbering up, actually, as we speak. It's quite something to behold. It's a Friday Sport preview with Rob. Then Greatest Hits with Kinners from 6. Howard is here with Sweet and Swing from 9, and then the weekend really does get underway. It's Nick Holt and the 90s playlist from 10 p.m. Have a lovely weekend, whatever you're doing. Do stay tuned to Manx Radio. You can find out the full schedule just on the Manx Radio website, and Update will be back with you at 5 p.m. on Monday.